Katie Nicholl is a royal expert. I've known her for many, many years. She knows everybody. She's top of her tree in what she does. So I want to ask you straight, and I hope you don't mind me asking you. Camilla, over the front page of the Sun today. We haven't got the Sun today, basically, but what are they calling her? Viper or whatever. Villain. Whatever. I want to first of all ask you, any truth, any substance, in your opinion, your extensive connections and knowledge, has Camilla or her people ever come to you and said, right, let me tell you this about Harry and Meghan?
Honestly? No. I'm going to give you an example. I did a big story on the Duchess of Cornwall, as she then was. She wasn't Queen Consort by that point, for Vanity Fair. Now, of course, I went in with the big guns, wanting the sit down, wanting the interview, and I didn't get it. But I was told that, the palace, who usually are pretty unhelpful with things like this, they don't want you sniffing around, they don't want you talking to friends. They said, well, we'll connect you with this charity and that charity, and, this friend might be helpful. So I felt there was access. But not at any stage was it, right, we want a glowing piece on Camilla. And actually, this was a largely positive piece. And by the way, you can have this little morsel about Harry or Meghan that actually just shows how damaging they've been, while Camilla has been this saviour of the royal family. This idea that, of course, there are briefings out of the palace. It is the job of a communications officer to do that. I've never said that they wouldn't. They would never say that. But this idea and this fixation of Harry, that there were these negative briefings, these negative stories planted to sort of make him and Meghan look bad at the expense of rehabilitating Camilla's image. Not true. But just one final quick thing is that at the time when, after Diana's death, and when Charles wanted to bring Camilla publicly into their life, into the public's life, into the palace, yes, someone was brought in, Mark Bolan, the spin doctor, to rehabilitate. He was in charge of rehabilitating Camilla's image, of turning things around.
So Harry is correct from that point of view that Camilla's image needed rehabilitation.
She had a PR man, and they needed one. Charles's reputation was at an all-time low. She was the most reviled woman in Britain. And when that distance had been given after Diana's death and Charles deciding that he needed to move on with his life, this woman who'd been kept in the shadows needed to be brought out. Yes, there was a campaign. Yes, there were people saying, well, hang on a minute. Look at her work with the Osteoporosis Society. There's a story here. Her mother was ill with it. There's a connection. There's some good work being done. And that has been a pattern that has evolved.
Katie, knowing the royals as you do as well, give us a sense of what this will mean to the king to see the words villain in capitals splashed across one of the most popular newspapers in this country.
Well, it goes back
it's the first time in decades I've seen it.
I was just about to say as well, it goes back to those terrible, terrible headlines, what was it, 25 years ago, when she was the most reviled woman in Britain, and that will be deeply hurtful to the king. We're months away from a coronation. Camilla will be crowned too. And I just think she has done a huge amount of work. She would never say she's been perfect, but her work has been, it's been the proof in the pudding. She has delivered. She has turned things around. And so I think for the king, that will be devastating. And I was also told that if Harry he was expecting to come under fire. Of course he was. But if Harry got personal with Camilla...
that was a red line.
It was a red line, and it's been crossed.
Right, well, let me ask you this. You mentioned the coronation. From a purely personal point of view, if this was the three of us bitching about each other and we had to meet socially or...
We'd never do anything like that.
Well, but you know, human reaction would be you would freeze someone out. Now, the royals are more restrained in what they can actually do. How do you see the coronation playing out? Do you invite Harry and Meghan? In which case, if you do, it gives them more material for future documentaries and books and things. If you don't invite them, it gives them material for future documentaries and books. How on earth is that going to be played out?
Well, I think in many ways, and in all of this, Harry does have the royal family over a barrel, because they're not going to answer back. They're not going to address every twist and turn in his narrative. I think the king wants ultimately a reconciliation. I think he is a magnanimous man as well. I think he will take a leaf out of his mother's book. I think there will be an invitation that olive branch will be extended, because it is still his son, and I am told, despite all of this, he loves his son. He will have him there.
Look what they've said about Catherine. Look what they've said about Camilla. Look what they've said. Well, who else have they
gaslighting, fundamentally, and people describing Prince William, although he assaulted Harry, as being a punchbag because he cannot publicly respond to all of these allegations. It's incredibly tough on the family.
It's not easy for anyone. I don't think anyone comes out well of this. I have sympathy for Harry.
Yeah.
I've read the book.
Yeah.
You can't read it and not feel sympathy for him. Okay.
Yes.
And I have great sympathy for the royal family, who, as you say as well, they cannot answer back. But I think ultimately, and Harry said this in the Bradbury interview, and it was the one thing I really absolutely thought he'd hit the nail on the head. He said that the royal family is all about unity, and it is. And somehow they are going to have to work this through. There has to be some form of reconciliation. There has to be some sense of moving forwards, because for the king to have the early months or years of his reign overshadowed by the goings-on of this royal rival court across the pond, it's a massive problem. Now, if both are saying they want some sense of reconciliation, OK, let's get that on the table. But it comes down to this bond of trust, which has been badly broken.
Final question. So much in this book, so much detail about things that, quite frankly, are very trivial. Any mention of his uncle and his unsavoury goings-on there?
Yeah, he does.
Say that's much more serious.
He does. He does take on.
Gloss.
Yeah, he does take on the issue of Andrew. He takes on the issue of Andrew and his security. But I think there are certain sort of big royal issues and issues that he's raised that he doesn't go to. The suggestions of racism within the royal family, I couldn't see any of that in there. The idea that Meghan can get therapy, which was obviously a big issue in Oprah, I couldn't see any of that in there. But yes, he does touch on his uncle. And I have to say, it's a beautifully written book.
Yes.
It's a beautifully written book.
A very well-respected journalist who wrote it for him.
Yeah, it's a beautifully written book, but my goodness, hasn't it come at a price? Can he ever get his family back?
We've got the live shot.
The price being 28 quid.
Yes.
Oh, yes, well, I was talking about the price that Harry's been paid for it. Was it worth it for him? That's a question for him to answer. But yes, £28. So
show the live shot of the Waterstones in Central London. Let's have a look. People are queuing up this morning. There's a few people in the...
Who's queuing up? Wait a minute. What are we looking at there? Is that people actually queuing up?
Yes. There you go, in the rain.
Why would you?
Look, this book is going to sell like hotcakes. It absolutely is. He's
Katie, why is it? Because I know everything that's in it. Why would I buy it?
Well,
you don't necessarily, because there's 416.
Yeah, there's a lot more in it. And I tell you what, Eamon, we've heard all the massive stories. I mean, I've gone through it. I can't find anything that anyone's missed. Yeah. But for me, and maybe it's just because of the job I've done for so long, it's all the little details. Yeah. It's what it was really like to be a child growing up at Balmoral. It was about Club H, the club I first wrote about in my book, William and Harry, and what really happened in Club Highgrove. So I found all of that. For me, it was also the detail was in the minutiae, and that was wonderful detail to read.
That's why you do what you do. That's why you're the best in the business. Thank you very much indeed, Katie Nicholl. Thank you.